Good morning, students. Today we are going to see elasticity of demand. Okay. Now, what is elasticity of demand? Elasticity of demand is the extent to which demand responds to the changes in any its determinants like price, income, taste, and preferences, etc. Okay, so what is elasticity of demand? Elasticity of demand is the extent to which demand changes because of changes in any of the factors affecting demand like price, income, taste, and preferences. Now, in elasticity of demand, we have price elasticity of demand, income elasticity of demand, and we have cross elasticity of demand. First, let us see price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand is depend on law of demand. What law of demand says? Law of demand says that when other determinants affecting the demand remains constant, okay, and as price falls demand expands, and as price rises demand contracts, okay, but by what proportion there is expansion in demand or by what proportion there is contraction of demand is not understood, or we don't get that proportion with the help of law of demand, but we will get that proportion with the help of the price elasticity of demand. So with the concept of price elasticity of demand, you can know that uh, by how much proportion there is expansion in demand and by how much proportion there is contraction in demand. So that is price elasticity of demand. Okay, turn the page number 28. Meaning of price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand shows the proportion to which demand changes with a change in price. Okay, or you can say price elasticity of demand shows the proportion to which demand changes with the expansion of demand or the contraction of demand. Okay, how to find out price elasticity of demand? This is the formula to find out price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand is equals to proportionate change in demand upon proportionate change in price. Okay, as they have given over here example, if a 1% fall in price of commodity X leads to a 5% rise in demand for X, then what is price elasticity of demand? Then you have to write the formula, proportionate change in demand, okay, and proportionate change in price. Okay, so where is the what is the demand? Demand is here. What it is? 5% rise. 5% rise means positive. So plus 5. Okay. And 1% fall in price of commodity. Fall means negative. So minus 1. Okay. So 5 upon 1 you will get the answer 5, which will be in this brackets. Okay. And in this brackets, whenever you this will be the 5 is positive and 1 is negative, which is the highest value. 5 is the highest value, so obviously the answer will be positive here. Okay, but from this bracket whenever you get the answer, that answer will become positive only. Okay, now just remember, if there is rise or if there is expansion, there is that is positive sign, and if there is fall, if there is contraction, then we have to put negative sign. Okay, note what they have given. Price elasticity of demand is a pure number, is expressed as a pure number, and it is not associated with any of measurement. Okay, price elasticity of demand is expressed as a pure number and it is not associated with any of the measurement like kilograms or meters or centimeters, etc. Okay, then they have given again definition of price elasticity of demand, that is given by Marshall. According to Marshall, the degree of elasticity of demand, or we can say the demand, depends upon the extent of rise in demand because of fall in price and upon the extent of fall in demand because of rise in price. Okay, so according to the Marshall, the elasticity of demand depends on what? the extent of rise in demand because of fall in price and extent of fall in demand because of rise in price. Okay, so this is one of the definition given by Marshall about price elasticity of demand. Now when we talk about price elasticity of demand, there are 5 different degrees of price elasticity of demand. Okay, the price elasticity of demand has 5 degrees: perfectly elastic demand, perfectly inelastic demand, unitary elastic demand, relatively elastic demand, and relatively inelastic demand. Okay, now let us see what is perfectly elastic demand. Okay, in all these degrees you need to know the meaning and the diagram properly. Okay, so let us see perfectly elastic demand. Okay, what is perfectly elastic demand? When there is infinite change in demand and negligible change in its price, then such demand is called perfectly elastic demand. What they say? When there is infinite change in demand, you cannot measure the change in demand, infinite. When there is infinite change in demand and no change in price, okay, there is not at all any change in price, then such demand is called perfectly elastic demand. Okay, perfectly elastic demand is also called as infinite elasticity. Okay, so if you want to write, just write over there, the perfectly elastic demand is also called as infinite elasticity. Why infinite elasticity? Because there is infinite change in demand and negligible change in price, so the demand is called as infinite elasticity, or it is called as perfectly elastic demand. Okay, here also the formula remains the same: proportionate change in demand upon proportionate change in price. No change in price and change in demand is infinite, so answer that you get is infinite. Okay, so that is perfectly elastic demand. Let us see perfectly inelastic demand. Now when you see perfectly inelastic demand, what is perfectly inelastic demand? Okay, you can see here the meaning what I have written, you can learn that. So whenever you see the video, you can just pause over here and you can write this. Okay, when percentage change in demand is nil, means 0, when percentage change in demand is 0 as compared to percentage change in price, demand is said to be zero elasticity or perfectly inelastic demand. It means demand is 0 and price is changing, but if demand is 0, then answer that you are going to get is 0. For example, here they have given, okay, say when price of a commodity, say commodity K, changes by the amount say 10, so 10 is the price they have given, but there is no change in its demand, no change in its demand means 0, then such a demand is called perfectly elastic demand. How? Proportionate change in demand upon proportionate change in price. Proportionate change in demand is how much? No change in demand means 0. Okay, and change in price is what? 10. So 10 plus, but 0 upon 10, answer what you will get? 0. So that is called as perfectly inelastic demand, or it can also be called as zero elasticity. Okay, it can also be called as zero elastic demand or zero elasticity. So when percentage change in demand is nil as compared to percentage change in price, demand is said to be zero elasticity or perfectly inelastic demand. Okay, next that you have is unitary elastic demand. Unitary elastic demand, for that you learn this meaning, that is easier. Okay, what they say, what is unitary elastic demand? When proportionate change in demand and proportionate change in price are equal, then demand of a commodity is known as unitary elastic demand. For this you will always get answer 1. Why you will get always answer 1? Because the proportionate change in demand is equal to the proportionate change in price. See over here. For example, if the price of the commodity falls by 5 and its demand by 5, then there is unitary change in demand. Okay, They say if price of the commodity S falls by 5, means price is over here, proportionate change in demand upon proportionate change in price. So fall means minus, so minus 5 here, and change in demand is 5, and they have not written anything, just written 5, so it will be positive 5. 5 upon 5, what answer you will get? 1. So this is proof that the proportionate change in demand is equal to proportionate change in price. Then such demand of a commodity is known as unitary elastic demand. In diagram also you can see, here is the demand and here is the price. The demand and price are equally extended, okay, or equally changed. Okay, the proportionate change in demand is equal to the proportionate change in price. Okay, then that type of demand of a commodity is called as a unitary elastic demand. Turn the page, page number 30, that is relatively elastic demand. In relatively elastic demand, as I have written over here, the change in demand is more than price. Okay, the change in demand is more than price, means when percentage change in demand is proportionately more than percentage change in price, then such demand is called relatively elastic demand. Okay, in short, there will be more change in demand than in price. The change in demand will be suppose 30 and change in price will be just 10. So where is the more change? The more change is in demand side. So when percentage change in demand is proportionately more than the percentage change in price, then such demand is called relatively elastic demand. Okay, for example, they have written, if price of the commodity R rises by 10 and the demand falls by 30, then it is called elastic demand. Where the more changes, price is 10, rise and fall you don't have to see, you just have to see where there is more changes. Okay, the rise is only 10% of price and fall is 30%. Where there is more changes, there is more changes in demand, right? So that is called as relatively elastic demand, where there is more changes in demand than price. You can put it in the formula, proportionate change in demand upon proportionate change in price. How much change in demand? Fall by 30. Fall means minus 30. Okay, and rise in prices by 10, so plus 10. So you will get the answer 3. Okay, you will get minus 3, but in this bracket the negative becomes positive. Okay, and here also in diagram also you can see that there is more change in demand than change in price. See this arrow, there is more change in demand than there is change in price. So that is called as relatively elastic demand. Okay, next one, relatively inelastic demand. Relatively inelastic demand means opposite. Opposite means there is more change in price and demand. There is more change in price than in demand. So when proportionate change in demand is proportionately lesser than proportionate change in price, then such demand is called relatively inelastic demand. Okay, what they say, relatively inelastic demand, when percentage change in demand is proportionately lesser than proportionate change in price, then such demand is called relatively inelastic demand. For example, price changes in prices how much? Rises by 20 and changes in demand is how much? Only 5. Okay, so where the more changes are, there is more changes in prices, so that is relatively inelastic demand, where the more changes you can see in prices. Now put that in the formula, proportionate change in demand upon proportionate change in price. What they have given for demand, result, as a result its demand falls only by 5%. Falls by 5% means, falls means minus 5, and rises, the prices rises by 20, so plus 20. So 5 upon 20, okay, you will get minus 1 upon 4, which will come in the bracket, and you will get 0.25. Okay, and in diagram also you can see that there is more change in price than in demand. Okay, there is proportionately more change in price than in demand, then it is called as the relatively inelastic demand. Okay, so here we complete with price elasticity of demand. Let us move to income elasticity of demand. Now, what was the meaning of price elasticity of demand? The changes that you can see in demand because of the change in the other determinants of the other because you can see the change in the prices. Okay, what was the price meaning of price elasticity of demand? The meaning of price elasticity of demand means the change in the demand due to the change in the increase in price or due to the change in the decrease in price. Okay, then what is income elasticity of demand? Income elasticity of demand means the changes that you can see in demand because of the changes in the income of the consumer. Okay, whether income increases or whether income decreases, what is the effect of it on the demand of a particular good is called as the income elasticity of demand. Okay, as we have written over here, as price is the cause of change in demand and the concept of price elasticity of demand. Okay, as price is the cause of change in demand in the concept of price elasticity of demand. In income elasticity of demand, income is the cause of change in demand in the concept of income elasticity of demand. Okay, in price elasticity of demand, there was change in demand because of price, and in income elasticity of demand, there is change in demand because of income. Okay, and you know, if mostly it happens that the in if the income of the consumers affect the demand of a particular commodity, right? So that is income elasticity of demand. It means income elasticity of demand is useful to measure changes in the demand for a commodity with respect to the changes in the income of a consumer. Okay, and the formula to find out remains the same. Okay, income elasticity is equals to proportionate change of demand upon proportionate change in income. There it was in price elasticity of demand, it was proportionate change in demand upon proportionate change in price, but here it is what we are going to find out. We are going to find out income elasticity of demand. So proportionate change in demand upon proportionate change in income. Okay, now as we had different types in elasticity of the in price elasticity of demand, here also we have different types in income elasticity of demand. Okay, the first one, positive income elastic demand. Positive income elastic demand means you can also say direct relationship. Direct relationship means if the income of the consumer increases, the demand of the demand for goods will also increase, and if the income of the consumer decreases, then the demand for the commodities or product will also decrease. Then such a change in demand is known as positively income elasticity of demand. Very easy. Positive income elasticity, if income of the consumer increases, demand also increases. If income of the consumer decreases, demand also decreases. So that is positive income elastic demand. Okay, in positive income elastic demand, again you have three types. Unit income elastic demand. Unit income elastic demand means when change of demand and change of income are proportionately equal, then it is known as unitary income elastic demand. It means the when change of demand is equal to the change of income of a consumer, then such type of changes in demand is known as unitary income elastic demand. In short, the demand as well as the income of the consumer changes equally. Okay, when the change of demand is equal to the change of income of a consumer, then it is known as unitary income elastic demand. Next, elasticity of demand greater than unity. Okay, it means when demand changes, elasticity of demand greater than unity. Okay, when change in demand is proportionately greater than the change in income of the consumer, then this type of income elasticity of demand is known to be greater than unity. It means the change in demand is more than the income. So when change in demand is proportionately greater than the change in income of the consumer, then this type of income elasticity of demand is known as to be greater than unity. Elasticity of demand less than unity means here the income is changing more than the demand. So when change in demand is proportionately lesser than change in income of the consumer, then this type of income elasticity of demand is known to be lesser than unity. Okay. Next one, negative income elastic demand. Negative income elastic demand means when there is rise in the income of the consumer, there is fall in the demand, and when there is fall in the income of the consumer, there is rise in the demand. Then such type of demand of a products are called as negative income elastic demand. Now you will say, teacher, how this is possible? ઇન્કમ જો વધે તો ડિમાન્ડ વધે જ. તો એવું કેમ થયું કે અહીંયા ઇન્કમ વધી ને ડિમાન્ડ ઓછું થયું, ને ઇન્કમ ઓછી થઈ તો ડિમાન્ડ વધ્યું? This negative income elastic demand is true for inferior quality goods, and you know inferior quality goods are low priced, right? Inferior quality goods are low priced. So when the income of the consumer is less, okay, so he don't have any option, but he has to buy the low quality of goods which is low priced. Okay, so when the income of the consumer decreases, okay, the demand of the inferior quality goods will increase, and when the income of the consumer increases, the demand for the inferior quality of goods will go down. So that is negative income elastic demand. And last one, that is zero income elastic demand. In zero income elastic demand, okay, they say that with the change in income of consumer, if demand of the goods remain unchanged, then such demand is known to have zero income elasticity of demand. Okay, means whether the prices of goods, whether the income of the consumer has increased or decreased, but demand for the particular goods remains the same. It doesn't change at all. The demand doesn't change at all. Okay, whether there is with the change in income of the consumer, with the change in income of the consumer means whether the income of the consumer has increased or decreased, but demand remains the same, demand remains unchanged, then such demand is known to have zero income elasticity of demand. And this is true for those goods which are very low priced. For example, salt, okay, postcard, pins, matchboxes, staplers. Okay, so whether the income of the consumer is more or whether the income of the consumer is less, okay, he is going to spend only a certain amount on buying those particular items. Okay, સોલ્ટનો ભાવ ઓછો થઈ ગયો તેનો મતલબ કે બહુ બધું સોલ્ટ લઈ લેવાનું, બહુ બધું સોલ્ટ લઈને શું કરવાના? Okay, so whether there is increase in the income of the consumer, whether there is decrease in the income of the consumer, but demand for that particular goods will remain the same. That is called as zero income elastic demand. Okay, so here we have finished with this. Now tomorrow we will see cross price elasticity of demand. Only one topic is left. Okay, here we complete, and then we will see the question answers. I will discuss the question answers. Okay, thank you.